Canadians believe you'll do anything differently, though, than Justin Trudeau? You've advised him. You've given him advice. You've been a Liberal. So what is going to be markedly different here?
Well, there's several things. First, you started by a few moments ago mentioning that I had 20 different responsibilities.
If you thought Justin Trudeau was bad, boy, oh boy, this guy is going to blow your mind. Mark Carney does a one-on-one sit-down to talk more about how he's going to absolutely destroy our country. I mean, this guy is the product of the World Economic Forum. He's the boss at the World Economic Forum. Trudeau is controlled by the WEF. Mark Carney is the WEF. This is extremely scary. Even look at his face. Look at his face. This is 0 seconds, 0 minutes, 0 seconds into the interview. And this is like pretty much the thumbnail. Look at that guy. That's a freaking weird reaction, weird looking face. We're going to take a look at this interview. We're going to sit down and dissect this because
VoiceMod gives you over 150 lag-free real-time voice changers and unlimited sound.
It's freaking scary, man. Oh my goodness. The future of Canada. I mean, Pierre's got a landslide victory. It looks like, okay, everything's looking phenomenal. But the fact that this guy's throwing his hat in the ring, he's an elitist. He's the elite of the elitists. We're in scary territory right now. So let's just get started.
Mark Carney, nice to see you. Appreciate you being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm going to start with the issue that is of most concern to Canadians right now, and that is, of course, the threat of tariffs by the president. You have said that you are leaving this to the real-time negotiations to the Prime Minister, but you could be faced with all of this in a matter of weeks. So what is your plan to take on the president's tariff threat specifically?
Well, so if I am selected as leader of the Liberal Party and therefore Prime Minister.
Notice how he didn't say elected. He said selected. That's some creepy-ass verbiage.
I'll do a couple of things. One is I will pick up where we are at that point. There are negotiations ongoing. They go back and forth. As we all know, the president changes his mind or raises different issues day by day, and so the government has to deal with that. So I'll pick things up where they are. But one thing I want to emphasize, and what I can talk about and have been talking about, is one of the most important things we can do for Canada, but also for the negotiations, is to concentrate on what we can control. We can't control President Trump, but we can control what we do here at home to reinforce our economy. So that's middle-class tax cut, that's investing in infrastructure, it's building new trade routes, it's doing all these things. It's having one Canadian economy instead of 13. And what I'm being more and more clear about is exactly how I would do that if I am selected.
And I will ask you some of those questions, but I still think that it would be helpful for Canadians to know exactly what you would do when it comes to tariffs. So why are you being so reticent to talk about that?
Because I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises. I know what you do in the order you can control things. It is not a good idea to insert yourself in the middle of a negotiation, give conflicting signals.
Other candidates are doing that.
It's not a good idea to do that. Full stop.
Right.
And I'm in a position where I take my responsibilities or my potential responsibilities seriously. I'm in contact. I understand where the state of play is, and as much as possible, we need to move with very, very deliberately. Another point I would make is I'm not looking to negotiate. If I am selected as leader and therefore Prime Minister, my interlocutor, the person I would negotiate with, is the President, not with others. And so, again, it's important at that stage. And last point, if I may, it's not appropriate for me at this point to have direct contact, obviously, with President Trump.
You have proposed that big polluters pay consumers.
He's a terrible finance minister, that guy.
Credit market.
Yeah.
With
I really hope he doesn't get in.
So you get rid of the carbon tax for consumers, and you would put this in place instead. How would you ensure, though, that those costs aren't passed on to consumers?
So there's a couple of things. First, and just to be clear, in terms of removing the consumer carbon tax, that also means we're removing the carbon tax for small, medium-sized enterprises, for farms and others, basically everyone up to 50 kilotons of emissions. So it's the large polluters that pay. Now, those large polluters today, what they try to do is reduce their own emissions. If they don't get to certain levels, depending on the sector, they pay the producer carbon tax.
It's a carbon tax, yeah.
So there you go. I mean, he's saying that he wants to remove the carbon tax, but he's not. He's still leaving it on for people that produce the most amount of emissions, and that would be people that distribute goods right? And so we're still paying the carbon tax. It's just super freaking weird verbiage, man. This guy is a creep.
PPS system as a whole, as you know. They have an option to buy carbon credits, which reduces the tax they pay. That market doesn't function very well. That carbon credit market doesn't function very well. So what we're actually doing here is improving the market, improving how it functions, adding additional credits, so additional options for those large polluters. They could buy these credits. This federal government will stand in between. And what's going to be new is a series of new incentives for households to reduce those emissions.
It still sounds to me, though, that there's an opportunity for companies to pass that on to consumers.
Well, just to be clear, them buying credits reduces their costs. It helps Canadians reduce their own emissions. Now, take a big step back and look at the overall producer carbon price. And let's take the example of the steel industry. So there's a carbon price on steel. To the extent to which that's paid, yes, that does show up in the cost, for example, of an automobile. Now, let's put this into proportions. If you look at a $25,000 or less car, the cost, if you replaced all the steel, and it became green steel, so no carbon steel, which is an extreme version of what we're talking about here, it's less than $200 additional price. So it's something, but it's not much. That's
okay, but you acknowledge that the consumer would pay more at some point.
Well, the consumer is already paying more. Just to be clear, the consumer is already paying more. These are marginal amounts, and two things are happening. One, with our plan, is that it gives the companies more options. It gives households, Canadian households who are hard-pressed. Look, I was across the prairies. It's minus 30 in the prairies. It'd be good to be able to insulate your house better, to drive other efficiencies. So it helps that. And may I make one other point, which is one of the things we have to be able to do as Canada is we have to get our companies more competitive. It's a big, bad world out there. It's a big, bad world out there. The people with whom we are more likely to trade with, now that our closest trading partner is attacking us,
you really still need that to be America, my man.
Look at the major. So
I need to move on. Because we don't have a lot of time. And you are saying that you're going to take away the carbon rebate, obviously, as well as the.
She's not impressed with them, which is a breath of fresh air, because every single time you've had mainstream media report on or interview Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, they don't have this resting B phase, RBF, right, as they like to say. And now that that Trudeau's out, you have to interview a whole bunch of new candidates for the Liberal leadership to then be the interim prime minister. It's good that she's not really falling for his crap, right? And neither am I, and chances are you aren't either. And I feel like we really need to start badgering Mark Carney and really looking at what he's going after. He's saying we're getting rid of a surface level carbon tax, but there's going to be a deep rooted carbon tax, and the big polluters that are going to be paying the carbon tax have an opportunity to buy carbon credits to reduce their costs. Like, bro, what the hell are you doing? This isn't a video game. It's not a 2-tier play to win system. Just reduce taxes all around. What do you mean? You get carbon credit coins and then you can change that in for tax rebates? Like, what the hell is going on here, man? Just simplify it. Less tax. Stop worrying so much about climate change. Pay less taxes. Get rid of the carbon tax. Less taxes. But this guy and the other Liberal candidates, they're not doing that. They're trying to surface level, go after Pierre's side, right? We're going to axe the tax. We're going to get rid of it. But it's just smoke and mirrors because they don't want to get rid of it. Carney doesn't want to get rid of it, as we just heard.
The carbon tax, right? So, and you're promising a middle class tax cut.
Yeah.
Who are you targeting? How broad is that, and how will you pay for it?
Okay. First off, thank you for raising that, because one of the core points is we don't just say axe the tax and then walk away. Don't care about our companies. Don't care about their competitiveness. Don't care about taking away the rebate. That's what Pierre Poilievre does. Pierre Poilievre doesn't care about the implication of his actions.
Well, he's going to give a tax cut as well.
He doesn't twin the two. Doesn't look. Doesn't think the add up. Doesn't think it matters. We'll do a broad-based middle class tax cut. We'll release the details of that in the coming weeks as appropriate, and we'll show that Canadian households are coming out ahead.
Will you balance the budget, and how quickly?
A couple of things there. One of the things we're going to do later this week is go through our new fiscal, what I would propose as our fiscal rules. Core to that is
he was the advisor. When Freeland was the finance minister, he was the advisor for Canada's finances. So the fact that we've been running a $60 billion quarterly deficit, and that's why Freeland didn't want to announce the budget, she really jumped ship and not only screwed Justin Trudeau over, but screwed Mark Carney over. He played a role. He was a contractor. He played a role in our budget. So the answer should immediately be, I'm not capable of balancing the budget because I've already tried and there was a massive deficit. That should be the only answer.
No, the boy's already been here.
To reduce spending of the government.
Mark Carney has already been the finance guy for Trudeau for the last 8-9 years. So if he hasn't done it already, I mean, he's not doing well, man.
So to balance our operational spending over the course of the next 3 years, to be absolutely clear, what that means in terms of operational spending, it is all the programs that the government runs. It is the transfers to provinces.
This is Trudeau's right-hand man, basically.
Education transfers, it's transfers to individuals, it's debt service, which continues to increase as government goes up. So we will balance that over 3 years.
He's a goof, just like Trudeau is.
Where we are willing to borrow is to invest and grow this economy. That is an absolute crucial point.
So there'll be a deficit.
It is a fundamental difference between the approach the government has taken up until now. It is a fundamental difference between the approach of Pierre Poilievre, which is a trickle-down, thousand flowers.
But there will be a deficit. It'll just be, you'll justify it because it's investing in the economy. Is that?
Investing in the economy at a time when we absolutely have to build as a country. And let me be clear about what investing in the economy means. It means precious.
Fine. What about our $500 billion that isn't in Canada?
Catalyzing many multiples of private dollars to build homes.
Who gives a shit about
this?
this?
New energy infrastructure, both conventional oil and
this
gas.
Is all. These are things
energy,
that you ran on. These are things Trudeau ran on, dude.
To build out new trade corridors, all of which are fundamentally necessary if we are going to grow this economy, irrespective of how President Trump is feeling on one day or another.
You talk about building new infrastructure, including pipelines. Do you support the idea of a west-east pipeline?
Look, I support the concept. I also know that Canada is a federation. First, let me say a couple of things. One is that we, as a nation, need to build some new pipelines for conventional energy. There are several options that are on the table. Some of them are quite advanced. Others of them are not. The Energy East, to use that term, has not progressed that much. It could restart, but there's not currently a sponsor. There's not progress there.
Would your government be a proponent of that pipeline if it were to start again, given that the government bought a pipeline in the past?
A couple of things. One is
East to West. East to West, buddy. Do you support it? Yes or no? Like, again, you have a Trudeau version 2, a scarier version of Trudeau because it doesn't carry any of that political baggage that Justin Trudeau had, right? He's been in the shadows this entire time. So people have seen him talk right now, unless you're watching videos like this that break down his nonsense, right? And know what he's done and how he's contributed.
You've never seen this guy.
Our massive deficit and
He's
our
right.
massive amount of debt. Then you're going to think that, these are just talking points, and he's coming at it from fresh eyes. No. Do you support a
He's
pipeline
been here.
east to west to transport our oil and gas? It's very simple. The answer is 100% yes. The only thing that Canada should be focused on is growing our economy and
they've had 8
making
years
more
to say
money.
yes.
We have to be able to ship it from our ports on the West Coast overseas. We have to be able to ship it from our ports on the East Coast overseas. That's the only thing that we should be worried about. One of the main things that we should be worried, not the only thing, one of the things, that we should be worried about here in Canada. You can't even answer a simple question. I support the idea of it. No. Say that it's going to be a non-negotiable for provinces to comply with this. Non-negotiable. So it means no province can get in the way of it being completed. I'm looking at you, Quebec. Okay, Quebec can't say, we don't want this coming through our province. No, non-negotiable. It's gonna happen. You need that. You need that firm hand to come down and say, we're doing the pipeline no matter what. No one's getting in the way.
My government would do is, and we've signaled this very clearly, we would use extraordinary powers of the federal government in order to accelerate the approvals for such pipelines, to accelerate the approval for clean energy.
Like repealing C-69? What does that mean?
We have extraordinary powers on impact assessment as well as others, and we.
What do you mean extraordinary powers?
I'm confused too.
Non-negotiables. Just say that. It's a non-negotiable. No band can get in the way. No city or municipality or county, nothing can get in the way. No province can get in the way. It's a non-negotiable. If I'm elected as prime minister, I will continue, or I will build a pipeline from east to west, non-negotiable. Nobody can get in the way. What are you talking about? Emergency powers? No, that's people don't want to hear that. Talk about
No.
reading the room, or a failure to read the room. Canadians don't want to hear emergency powers. The last time that was even used, it was illegally used. That's already been decided.
That's right.
So why are you
I
coming
mean,
out
they
here
still have a
trying to
sour
win
taste in their
Canadians over
mouth.
and
Why
saying,
are
well, we're going to use
why are you
emergency
talking about
powers?
that?
What the hell are you talking about, man? That's not the right approach at all.
Can
I
delegate
agree.
authority. But let me make a core point, which is Canada is a federation. So we take decisions. There's not one decision maker here. If you listen to Pierre Poilievre yesterday, as you probably did, he didn't mention the provinces once. He never mentioned First Nations. He acted as if it's just his decision to fly in somewhere and decide
In the name of SpongeBob, this guy stinks, man.
which pipeline happened.
Yes, non-negotiable. You're the prime minister. Make it happen, dude. Like this whole thing about how all of our provinces aren't communicating or even talking with each other. This whole thing that's going on in Canada of how you have all these blockades of who can build what, and you going through all these, indigenous lands and stuff like that, bro. Non-negotiables. Canada has very high standards. Oil is not going to be spilt. If it is, it's going to be extremely well cleaned up, and you're probably going to be extremely compensated for it. Like, just make it happen, man. Like, we're dealing with these minority voices that are controlling everything. That's how we've become this progressive country under Justin Trudeau. He doesn't have the balls to just say, this is what's happening, and it's non-negotiable. And Mark Carney doesn't have the nuts either for it. Like, just go in, bro. You're the leader of the country. This is how it's going to be. I don't care if you need to get votes here and there. Just freaking make it happen, man. This is what Canada needs right now, is a sweeping conservative outlook on everything. And this guy's still tippity-toeing around our oil and gas and our pipeline. If we don't have a pipeline that goes from east to west in the next 2 years, we're screwed. We're screwed for the next 50 years. 100%.
Probably if the America thing keeps up.
This is our last chance to actually
does make
get out of
sense.
debt and become a bit of an economic powerhouse. And if it doesn't happen because of these little pussyfooting around, oh my goodness, man, it's going to be catastrophic for Canada.
So Energy East, Northern Gateway, GNL, there's many others, these examples, interties between electricity grids, big trade corridors. Those are decisions that have to be taken in consultation with provinces, with First Nations. We need to do those rapidly, and one of the things I'm proposing, and one of the things I would do as Prime Minister, is quickly convene First Ministers. First and foremost, for free trade in Canada, we need one economy here, not 13. But secondly, and relatedly, is to advance some of these major projects. Let's decide which ones we want to build, and then let's get on with building.
When you were chair of Brookfield Management, you took on that role with the Liberal Party to advise the Prime Minister about economic growth. At the same time, Brookfield was looking to create a Canadian fund, was trying to get access to Canadian pension funds and federal money. Were you part of that bid, and was that appropriate?
I was not part of that bid. I'm not sure I recognize the full description of how you said it, but I was not part of that, no.
You resigned from more than 20 corporate boards, I think.
Not.
That was a weird answer. I don't know. That was fishy. That was real fishy.
Corporate boards. Most of those boards were philanthropic or charity.
You were
was
not
born
yet subject
corporate, man.
to ethics requirements.
I don't have any power, Rosie.
No, but would you put anything out there for Canadians to better understand your business dealings and your financial picture before you're elected?
Obviously, I'm going to comply with all the ethics guidelines, conflicts of interest guidelines, blind trust.
But during an election, before you have a seat, would you be willing to show Canadians what they're dealing with and what you've been dealing with?
Well, let's be clear. Okay. I was UN Special Envoy for Climate Action. I was chair of chair of Brookfield on a number of philanthropic boards and did a lot of charity and other work. So that's all disclosed in the public domain. I will immediately subject myself, if I am elected Liberal leader, of course I'm going to immediately subject myself to all the ethics guidelines, conflicts.
Now he says elected when he started off by saying selected. I mean, words matter here, folks. They absolutely matter. And the way this guy talks is extremely frightening.
It's very slimy.
Other guidelines in order to pursue.
You've been part of, in all of these various jobs that you've had, in some pretty elite circles, royals, celebrities, world leaders. Do you feel like you, in that position, understand what Canadians are going through right now in terms of their cost of living?
100% not.
Yes. I mean, I understand that Canadians, the average income, household income in Canada is $70,000. There's been a huge increase in the price level over the course of the last 5 years.
This guy, do you understand what Canadians are going through? And this guy just Googled. That's all he did is Google average wage in Canada. Okay, to me, that says you have no freaking idea, buddy. You're reading off a statistic when it should be a more human level. You know what the answer to that should be? I understand that people are struggling. I understand that there's more and more people that are living on the streets, and I understand that people are less and less able to afford a house, and people are being squeezed out of their house. They're going for mortgage renewals. They got mortgages when they were at all-time historic lows, right, Glenn? They're at all-time historic lows, Glenn. What are you doing? What are you talking about? And now that 5 years has gone by, people are renewing at insanely higher numbers, and they can't afford it. So they have to sell them. Foreclosures. People are paying double what they should be, double what the price of blueberries were in 2019 and in 2020. Like, that's real life. This guy just gave off a statistic. That's weird. It's cringe. It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Groceries more expensive. Housing has outstripped the ability of most younger Canadians to save for deposits and
Amen, brother.
on the housing ladder. So I understand that. What the advantage of my experience as governor of the Bank of Canada, working internationally, working with companies, et cetera, as an investor as well, is I know what to do about it. I know how to change it. We started this discussion about how are we going to react to the United States. This is not a theoretical exercise. It is a practical exercise. You have to understand what's going to drive investment in this economy. Let's be clear. There's huge uncertainty that's been put on us because of the Americans, because of the global situation. We need to take that away. We need to drive investment. Yes. I'm here because I have that experience, because I know how to manage crises, because I know how to grow economies.
But what you don't know how to do, with all due respect to you, is be a politician, because you've never done it before. And if you
I was just about to say,
that's a tough one.
Goodness, she beat me to it. I should have paused it. I was just about to say, the way she's been looking at him tells me that he does not belong as a politician. It's almost like I can't believe that she said that. I was just about to freaking say, oh my goodness, that it feels like he got a crash course on liberal talking points. Okay, Carney, whenever you're in trouble, just say, let me be clear, and then double down on your points and come at it from a different angle, right? Not 90 degrees, but 45. Just attack it from a 45-degree angle. You got this. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. Just say it like that. It's really
I love sunshine, baby.
It's like he's got a crash course, a failed 30-minute to 2-hour crash course on how to be a liberal politician, and it's not working. I can see right through it, and she can see right through it too. This is hilarious.
You would be the first prime minister who's never had an elected seat and never held office of any kind. Why should Canadians believe that you're up to this job?
Well, it's a decision. Canadians will, first off, my first job is to be elected leader of the Liberal Party. Yeah. So members of the Liberal Party, which have more than quadrupled over the course of the last month, and I've played a role in helping to cause that change, will decide who they want as their leader, and I'll be elected by or not by those individuals. Then Canadians, in short order, will get a decision whether or not which government they want to return to Ottawa. We will put forward a very clear plan for this country at a moment of crisis, not just to grow the economy, crucial, and we can do that. We have the experience in order to do that, but also to protect the vulnerable in this country. By the way, another thing Mr. Poilievre did not mention yesterday. It's as if nobody is disabled in this economy. Nobody is old. Yeah. Nobody is unemployed.
She doesn't care.
Nobody needs
Pierre's not saying that.
Help It's just the economy.
Why get into politics right now? Have you been offered positions in the past?
I have been offered positions in the past. I was offered, for example, Prime Minister Harper asked me if I would be his finance minister in 2012. It wasn't appropriate to proceed with that. I didn't.
Why wasn't it appropriate to proceed with that?
Well, I was governor of the central bank at the time, and I didn't feel that it was appropriate to go directly from being governor into elected politics. We're in a different, and there's been opportunities over time to join the Liberal Party and run. Why am I here now? Because we're in a crisis. This, for better or worse, my career, my experience prepares me for this moment.
Why should Canadians believe you'll do anything differently, though?
You're not even a politician.
You've advised him.
You're the finance guy that ran our country into the ground, and now you want to run the country? That doesn't work like that, homie. I hope it doesn't work like that anyway.
You've given him advice. You've been a Liberal. So what is going to be markedly different?
She's not
Well, there's
having
several
it.
things. First, you started by a few moments ago mentioning that I had 20 different responsibilities. I had 3 full-time jobs. How much time do you think I spent advising the government, quote unquote?
Well, if you listen to Conservatives, you were doing it all the time.
Well, yeah, if you listen to Conservatives, you think a lot of things that are wrong. We're very different people, Prime Minister and I. We have different backgrounds. I was born in the Northwest Territories. He was born in Rideau Hall. I'm a hockey goalie. He's a snowboarder. I focus on the economy. He has had a different focus for Canada. I think we have the same values.
He's really spiraling. He's saying this is just a big nothing burger.
Crisis, for this moment where we have to get our economy not just on track, but build it to be the strongest economy in the G7. That's what my experience, that's where it's directly relevant. And the other thing that's, if I may, I think is different between him and I, is my experience in all these different organizations and things over the years, is the importance of team, the importance of delegating authority, bringing the team along. We've got a lot of experience on the Liberal bench. I want to draw on that experience. I want to add to that experience and bring in outside expertise. There's some big differences, and there'll be big changes because the moment demands big changes.
We'll leave it there. Mr. Carney, thank you very much.
She was not having it. Man, I could see right through him. Right freaking through him. He didn't even have a good answer as to how he's different than Justin Trudeau and why people should think that he's different than Justin Trudeau. The guy is full of crap. And I'm really surprised that the interviewer didn't actually bring up the fact that he's on the board of the World Economic Forum and how Pierre Poilievre has had this completely separate approach that everyone from his cabinet is banned from the World Economic Forum, yet he's the guy in the WEF, right? He reports directly to Claude Schwab.
Mobile accessories.
Let's just
and so forget phone cases.
There
are
people?
1.5 billion mobile phones sold every year. 80% of those phones get a case. Majority of those cases get thrown away because
this is 39%. I just quickly Googled it, and there's something wrong with Jagmeet Singh. He keeps going on these tangents, and he keeps attacking Pierre Poilievre, keeps trying to compare him to Trump. It's just so freaking bizarre. And he spoke with reporters today. That's what we're going to take a look at right now. This guy is weird. He doesn't make any sense. And let's laugh at him together. Here we go.
We have some of the best workers in the world, if not the best workers in the world when it comes to steel. We make some of the best, if not the best steel in the world. We're in Hamilton right now, and this is a steel town. So these are the workers that are impacted by these tariffs. These are workers that are already feeling the impacts. But like Canadians, these workers are defiant. Canadians made a decision. We're seeing it across the country. People are saying, we're not going to buy American. We're going to boycott American. We're going to buy Canadian. Canadians are proud of their country, and they want to fight back. Just like these workers, they want to fight back. So let's support these workers in fighting back. My plan as Prime Minister is to ensure when we build infrastructure in this country, we got to build, but let's build using 100% Canadian steel. Let's put these workers to work. These workers want to work, and they make some of the best steel in the world.
I can't blame those people for leaving. Jagmeet Singh sucks. We're going to watch one on Freeland after this.
We are building the hospitals, the roads, the public infrastructure, the public transport using Canadian steel and Canadian workers. Let's turn inwards to ensure that we are building the country that we need with Canadian workers and Canadian steel. In addition, as Prime Minister, We got to make sure that we're here for workers
I'm
whenever
not
there's
going to
ups
be
and
prime
downs. We got to
minister,
be there
man.
for them. So I want to enhance EI. That includes looking at better work share and better supports for workers. If ever it's needed, EI should be there for you. But we got to
Canada's
start
already
first
poor.
by
We can't
building our
afford
country
EI.
up and making sure we use Canadian steel and Canadian workers to do that. But we know when there's conflict, when there's uncertainty, when there's unpredictability, there's different approaches. We know for the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, anytime he's confronted with a challenge like this, his solution is the same. Cut jobs, cut services that people need, and that's going to cost you and your family.
Oh, that's wrong, and that's probably what old Mr. Sunshine's going to say too. He wants to cut stuff like foreign aid. He's not trying to cut your jobs, man. That's completely incorrect.
That's a conservative.
It's cut services that we don't need as a country.
Right.
Cut services that are costing us billions and billions of dollars, similar to what Doge is doing in America. Cut useless spending.
Way, that's what they're proposing, and why? Well, they want to cut from
He just
you and your
lies through his
family
teeth, this guy.
to give to their billionaire buddies. That's what conservatives do. I'm surprised, though, that Mark Carney is now sounding very similar. He's saying some of the same things. He's saying he wants to cut public sector jobs, he wants to cut services, and he wants to give a big tax giveaway to his millionaire CEO buddies. It's no wonder that Stephen Harper, the former conservative
Look at that guy with the
Prime
white
Minister of
beard in the
Canada,
back. What's he doing back
wanted
there?
Mark Carney to be
What's
his
he even
finance
doing here?
minister.
That
Because
guy right
clearly
there.
They see eye to eye.
What's he doing?
Cutting services, cutting jobs.
Doesn't look
cutting
like he even
public
sees
sector
straight, man.
workers to give to their millionaire, billionaire CEO buddies. New Democrats reject that approach. We want to invest in our own country. We want to build up our country. We want to support workers. And to do that, we need to build Canadian with Canadian steel and Canadian workers, and we can do that. We're going to fight back by supporting our workers in our own country. That's what
It feels like this is on a loop. It feels like he's been saying the same thing for a couple of minutes now, or that this is generated by ChatGPT. This is why people don't like and don't trust Jagmeet Singh. It sounds like he doesn't even believe what he's talking about. Like he's just reading off of a script.
He's a pure
The guy
politician.
is weird. He doesn't have a spine.
If elected the next Prime Minister of Canada, you'll be dealing with the Trump administration and, of course, these looming tariffs. How would you deal with President Trump? What are your tactics that you think would be effective for someone like him?
All
There
right,
we
there's
go.
two parts to this. First of all, we're dealing with someone who's a bully, and bullies only understand one thing, that is strength. And Hamilton knows something about being in a fight. Hamilton's a scrappy town. They know what it's like. You got to fight back. That's for sure. But we can't control what he's going to do. We got to fight back. We got to defend our country. But we also have to look at what we can do for our country. And that's why I'm saying if we're going to use our federal government to build projects, let's massively build projects using 100% Canadian steel. Why are we using other steel for projects in our country when we can build it here in our country? We can put Canadian workers to work. That's what I'm proposing today. If we're going to build hospitals, roads, bridges, and we need to, if we're going to build public transport, if we're going to build massive infrastructure projects, let's use 100% Canadian steel. Let's ensure that these workers have jobs in Canada, supported by a government that puts workers first. That's our vision. We can't control what Trump's going to do. We can fight back, and we absolutely are ready to do that. But we got to be defiant in building up a country that we are proud of. And to do that, let's build Canadian, buy Canadian, support Canadian workers.
And Jagmeet, do you know right now
really
how
answer
much
the question.
steel in Canada is not Canadian steel that's being currently used?
Well, there's actually no requirement right now. When there are projects being built with taxpayer dollars, there's no real requirement that ensures that it's going to be all Canadian content. Many projects we see
I didn't know that, to be honest.
federal money going to foreign countries, foreign companies. We're not actually seeing a strong requirement that if we're building a bridge, if we're building roads, if we're building infrastructure, that all that content is Canadian. That's not something that any other party is proposing. We're saying let's use 100% Canadian steel in every project. Let's make that a requirement. If we're going to work with provinces to build projects, which we absolutely should, let's encourage them to also have a requirement that every piece, every part of steel that's used is 100% Canadian. Imagine the type of economy we could build if we were using Canadian steel.
The answer is 39%. I just quickly Googled it, and it says that Canada imports around 39% of its steel from the United States, meaning a significant portion of the steel used in Canada is not produced domestically. I mean, it's not hard to do. I don't know why he didn't do that beforehand. I don't know why someone didn't just whisper in his ear.
That's a great point.
We would like to do more, right? But 39%, it's not that bad. Right, it's a significant amount, but it's not the majority. So at least we still have the majority of our steel being made here in Canada that we use. But yes, of course, we want to do more production here in Canada.
And Canadian workers to build our country. Imagine the type of country we could build together. That's what I'm envisioning, where we are using the power of our country to build a better country.
This is what I don't like about these politicians, is they're saying we could build a better Canada, we could build this, we could build that. What are we building? Tell me what we're building, because to be honest, Canada and even America, we are a first world country, but when we look at what's going on in freaking Istanbul, when we look at what's going on in Japan, in China, they've got these high rises that are super high tech, and it seems like it's right out of a sci-fi movie. So are we going to keep building on top of our very archaic infrastructure, or are we going to modernize our world here in Canada? Like, please tell me what this is going to look like. He doesn't have an answer. It's just pandering. The guy doesn't know what the hell we're going to build. We're going to create a better Canada. Define it, please. Canadians would like to know. Not left up to the imagination. Define it.
Like, building things like hospitals, roads, bridges. One thing I haven't heard you mention that uses a lot of steel is pipelines. That there's lots of talk about with the tariff threat. Does Canada relook at the case for an east to west pipeline for something like natural gas? What would the NDP do on that front?
Well, we absolutely need to build infrastructure east-west, and what I'm proposing is an east-west energy grid. We've got incredible supplies of low-cost, cheap electricity that's clean electricity, but we're not connected between the provinces. Imagine the climate we could create, the business climate, the manufacturing climate we could create across.
This guy still doesn't get it. This is why Jagmeet is going to be a nothing burger after the next election. He's going to secure his pension. He's going to lose. He's going to announce that he's resigning or something. He's a freaking moron. Okay, electricity is only going to get us so far. We need oil and gas. We need a pipeline.
We need our money back in our own country.
Yada, yada, and get on board with the oil and gas. Because if you're not, you're going to be steamrolled, and there's going to be nothing left of your party.
Across the country, if we connected the cheap, low cost, cheap, clean electricity from jurisdictions like Manitoba, like BC and Quebec, and connected that.
What does it even mean? Clean electricity? Is there dirty electricity? Like, what the hell is this guy saying? He's trying to pander to people. I have no idea what they're talking about, right? Clean electricity. Oh my goodness. Have we been using dirty electricity?
I'm kind of over Jagmeet Singh.
I didn't know
how much more we got.
Oh, I hope the house isn't dirty electricity.
Across the country. Imagine the amount of jobs.
10 more minutes.
We built an east-west energy grid that connected our country. That's a project that would put steel workers to work, electricians to work.
I don't even like listening to this guy. He's so boring.
And we build up a more resilient country. We've heard, and I went to Germany, spoke with the German government. They want our energy. They want clean energy. So let's build clean energy in our country. That's a massive infrastructure project. That's lots of steel. That's lots of jobs. And that stays in our country. That builds up our country.
So is that a no to the idea of an NDP government approving an east-west pipeline?
No doubt.
Well, that's just my priority. My priority is we need a big, massive public infrastructure project, and I'd like to see an east-west energy grid. But when it comes to public projects around energy...
So that's nothing to do with the pipeline then. You're just... This guy stinks, man.
We have a couple of criteria that we look at. These are important criteria. We want to make sure, one, it's something that the community wants in their community, so social acceptability. We want to make sure that it's a project that actually benefits workers. So we want to see a clear plan that creates jobs in communities that benefits Canadian workers. We want to make sure that we meet our environmental requirements, so we're not...
It kind of reminds me of like Squidward's head. Squidward's got like a big fat head. He's got a big fat head because of that fucking turban. I wonder what his hair looks like. You guys ever wonder that?
Is an east-west energy grid.
What Singh's hair looks like?
As well.
He can never just have a common sense approach. It's always this off-brand artisan Timu wacko weird thing. An east to west energy grid, we're going to keep it in-house, and then he says that we're going to sell it to Germany. So which is it? Are we keeping it in-house, or are we going to sell our electricity to Germany? He says clean electricity. What the hell does that even mean? I've never even heard that. I've never once in my life heard clean electricity. Is there dirty electricity? Is it electricity that's powered by oil and gas or just generators? Like, what does it even mean, bro? There's a reason why Jagmeet Singh is becoming the most irrelevant politician in Canadian history. Is he says the most freaking retarded stuff. Like, I don't know how else to say it. The guy he's got some loose screws. He's such a freaking idiot.
Hi, Mr. Singh. You've talked extensively about how there'll be, in your estimation, an election in March, yet you guys have only roughly 140 candidates nominated so far. What's taking so long for the NDP to get a full slate of candidates in place?
We'll be ready, election ready when the election comes. We're well on track to achieve that. We have hit all of our targets, and we'll be ready for an election. And that election is going to be important for folks out there. You're seeing what we're focused on. We want workers first. We want to support you and your family. The Conservatives want to cut, and it's going to cost you. And the Liberals let you down. And people tell me they don't want to give them another shot. It's an important election. We'll be ready to fight it.
Oh, yeah. You look real ready with your little Christmas gray sweater.
Provincially, we've seen an NDP candidate drop out and say...
Oh, another thing. What the fuck is he wearing? What is that sweatshirt thing he's wearing? Is that supposed to be fancy? Like, it just looks like just a regular sweatshirt to me.
Back the Liberal candidate, they're the best person to be able to beat the Conservatives in our riding. At a federal level, I'm sure there's many progressives who would like the idea of voting for you, but they look at the polls and see that the Liberals are pulling ahead. Will you commit to running a full slate of candidates across the country and run against the Liberals in every riding?
Yes, we'll have a full slate of candidates. And I can tell you, I've been in government, in elected official, in some of the most difficult times. And during the pandemic, when there was just 25 of us, we were able to fight for the things that Canadians needed. If we were not there, if New Democrats were not there, people weren't going to get the help that they needed. And now in this last minority government, everything that we were able to get done that made people's lives better, protections for workers, funding for pharmacare, dental care for seniors, only happened because of New Democrats. We have seen that governments do not act and can't get things done unless more New Democrats are elected. Elect more of us, and more will be done for working people.
It's so hard to
Today,
listen to this guy.
We plan to put workers first, to build Canadian infrastructure using Canadian steel. That's what you get with a Canadian. That's what you get with New Democrats in power. So I encourage you all, if you want someone that's going to fight for you, someone's going to stand up for you, elect a New Democrat in your riding.
Hard pass.
We will now go to Olivia Stefanovic with CBC News. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Singh. Should U.S. President Donald Trump be allowed to come to the G7 in Canada while he's insulting Canada and making threats against it?
I think it's an important question. This is someone that's threatened our country and has threatened our very sovereignty.
Is he about to say that he's not going to let Trump into the country? Like, he wouldn't let Trump into the country if it was his choice? There's no way.
What I'm really concerned about is the fact that we've got a candidate who's running for prime minister who is endorsed by Elon Musk, someone that's a part of the administration.
Son of a bitch. He wants to kick
our country, threaten our
Trump
jobs,
out. He doesn't even want to let Trump in.
Accepted that endorsement. That shows you where he stands. He accepted the endorsement of someone who's a part of an administration that wants to take over our country. It shows you that he is not fit to be prime minister, and it shows you that he doesn't put Canada first. I've said very clearly, let's attack directly Elon Musk by putting 100% retaliatory tariffs on Tesla products. Let's make them feel the economic pain.
Again, super hypocritical. He talks about clean energy. He wants to go after this environmental issue and hit our quotas and blah, 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 blah. He's pro EVs. He didn't answer anything about oil and gas pipelines, but he's pro electricity. Freaking really made sure that we all knew what clean energy was. I've never heard that in my entire life, but now he's going after the leading company in electric vehicles just because of an egotistical move. Again, this guy is not somebody to be taken seriously on any level. Jagmeet Singh is an egotistical maniac who is just trying to pander. Why would you go after the car company that has revolutionized the electric vehicle
Cashforcars.ca buys vehicles in any condition. Sell your car online by visiting our website.
that we would lift the GST on new homes for first-time home buyers, help young people get that first home of their own. And
Isn't that what Pierre's been saying? Not just for first-time home buyers, but for new home sales, lift the GST, you'd save $50,000 or something like that. Well, the leadership race for the Liberal Party is coming to a close. There's about 30 days left before a new prime minister is elected/selected within the Liberal Party, that is. And Mark Carney, I believe, has a tremendously large lead over the other candidates. In order, I believe it would be Mark Carney, Freeland, Gould, and then Ruby. And Freeland knows this. So what she's doing right now is she's going on CTV Atlantic, Who to Be to Buy the Guy, and she's doing an interview in a last-ditch effort to try and gain a little bit more popularity within the 400,000 Liberal voters that are going to be voting in this upcoming election. So let's take a look at it right now. I freaking can't stand her face. I can't stand the way she talks, but it's going to be good. Here we go.
A former deputy prime minister, former finance minister, some other high-profile roles. I want to thank you so much for making time for us tonight.
It is great to be here with you, Bruce.
Critics would point out, that you have been kind of shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Trudeau for his whole tenure, really, as prime minister. And it's clear Canadians are looking for a change. So why would they choose you to get that change?
Well, first of all, I will point out, Bruce, I was the one minister who had the gumption to resign. Sure. And that was a hard thing to do, and it was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But the reason that I am here in Halifax talking to some great Liberals and asking them to choose me to be the next Liberal leader and the next Prime Minister is because we are at an existential moment for our country. I take the threat that Donald Trump poses to our country extremely seriously. It's actually the thing that really drove my decision to step down from government. It was the central theme of my campaign launch. And I know that at this critical moment, I am the person who can stand for Canada and fight for Canada. I have the experience. I did it before. And I have the guts to do it again.
No, you, in a moment where you were supposed to be delivering our massive deficit, you quit. You didn't show up. You didn't do your job. You resigned. You created mass panic. You voted against several votes of non-confidence against your own government, Trudeau, right? Your leader. And now all of a sudden you have this newfound moral compass. Come on, man. You're a horrible, horrible MP. You've done so much harm to this country. You stood by for years and watched Trudeau, cheered him on, even supported his decisions to ruin our economy and to ruin morale here in Canada. And now all of a sudden, this new moral compass is, we're going to do the greatest thing ever for Canadians. I don't think anyone's buying it. I really don't.
A whole bunch of things I want to ask you about Donald Trump and where that goes. But first, let's get into the leadership perception, because what we're seeing is, what we're hearing from the pollsters is that your party is gaining ground, which is great, but it seems to be gaining ground if Mark Carney is the leader. So what do you make of that?
Well, I would disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think there is a whole energy, a new energy in the Liberal Party right now, and that is wonderful. We now have 400,000 Liberal members. That is a great thing.
Sure.
And I think
talking about new registered voters for this leadership race here for the Liberals. And I mean, a lot of that, thousands probably. I don't know about dozens of thousands, but there's at least thousands of people there where they're not Liberals. They're conservatives that want to troll the Liberals and vote for the least likely candidate to just mess with the entire system. And I don't know if the Liberals have a way to filter through that or not. I feel like that would almost be impossible to do, but who knows what's going to happen. The new shift in the Liberal Party has nothing to do with new morale. In fact, I would say it's the opposite. Liberals are more likely to vote in for Mark Carney because he's fresh blood. He brings a new face, a new vibe to the Liberal Party. That's not me saying he's good. Heck no. I think Mark Carney is the devil, right? He's a wolf in sheep's clothing right there. But Chrystia Freeland stood by and destroyed this country. She abandoned ship. She did. I mean, it's totally badass that she totally screwed over Justin Trudeau. Like, that's phenomenal. I think that was hilarious. But from a professional standpoint, what she did was extremely unprofessional in how she just resigned on the day where she was supposed to announce the big budget deficit, right?
Yeah, it wasn't very cool of her.
That's why you see more and more Liberal MPs are endorsing Mark Carney. If I'm not mistaken, it's just as many are endorsing Carney as Freeland, or if not more. So people don't want Freeland, even within her own party.
What has really energized Liberals is people are recognizing that this is such a crucial moment for Canada, and they are recognizing that our party is the party to fight for Canada. They're also recognizing, by the way, Pierre Poilievre is not the guy who can do it. He is maple syrup MAGA. All he wants to do is imitate
What are you
Trump.
talking about?
And I don't think Canadians trust him to stand up to Trump. And so I think that's giving us a lot of energy, and that's why I'm really putting myself forward as the person, as the woman who can do it.
Let's get in the weeds a little bit about Trump, because, and this is fascinating, he has said publicly he just doesn't like you. Now, under normal circumstances, that would be kind of funny, but this is a high-stakes thing here.
I think that is the best campaign ad I could ever have, that President Trump knows who I am. He knows I'm a tough negotiator. He knows I got a great deal for Canada last time. I mean, remember last time he was president? He threatened to rip up NAFTA, and there was a lot of shouting, a lot of kicking and screaming, and at the end of the day, we actually got a better deal than we had to start with. He also threatened steel and aluminum tariffs and, in fact, imposed them on us in 2018 when I was in charge of leading Canada through it. And the Americans, a few months later, unilaterally lifted those tariffs. So I know how to get the job done. I know that it takes strength and a plan and fortitude. That's why Donald Trump knows who I am. And that's why I'm the best next leader of the Liberal Party.
What do you make of his comments about annexing Canada? I mean, the first term he was worried about getting reelected. This is it for him, presumably. So, some of the.
And a good thing to point out, too, is the fact that every single person that's running for prime minister is against Trump from the Liberal side, right? Mark Carney is against Trump. Never once has he talked, if I'm not mistaken, never once has he talked about working with Americans and with Trump. Either is Freeland. She's going around bragging of the fact that Trump called her the killer and that she's going to go toe-to-toe with him. She's not talking about working with him or with America, okay? The only one that's actually put that idea out there that we should be working with America, not against them, but we are going to stand up for ourselves, is Pierre Poilievre. That's the only person who's saying, look, we're not going to let them steamroll us, but at the same time, it's in everyone's best interest to work with America, especially since we're their neighbors, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. I don't agree with the retaliatory stuff, but nonetheless, let's keep looking here.
The threats are kind of off the table right now. How serious is he about?
Oh, I think that threats to our sovereignty we have to take extremely seriously. I don't think we can laugh this off as any kind of a joke.
Right.
The president has repeated these threats. He has said he will use economic coercion to force us to negotiate.
Right.
And I think we as a country need to be extremely clear that capitulation is not a negotiating strategy, that Canada is not for sale, that our sovereignty is not negotiable. And I have to tell you something else, Bruce, something like this is all very serious and kind of quite somber. What is really raising my spirits is how Canadians are responding to this, right? Like there has been just across the country this unanimous and spontaneous outpouring of patriotism and love for our amazing country.
I don't think that's true.
No, it's turned into anti-American. You're literally creating a social and economic war with America. That's why you have people booing American anthems in our sports right now. Like, what are you talking about? That's not patriotic to boo another country's anthem. Oh my goodness. Patriotic to wave our flag. People have been doing that for years. In fact, this whole patriotic thing of waving a flag, they freaking bastardizes people, man. Ostracize people in the convoy. Ever since the convoy, you wave the Canadian flag, you're a crazy freaking terrorist. You're a bad person. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you're a liberal. You're awesome. Woohoo, you're patriotic. What the hell's wrong with these people? Come on.
And Canadians are saying very clearly to our American friends and neighbors, Don't push us around. If you hit us, we will hit back. We have no intention of giving up our sovereignty.
It's the wrong solution, man. Just fix the problems. Fix the border. Just fix the border. That's all you got to do. Fix the border. Put some money into the military. That's all you got to do. Like, I don't know why you're kicking and screaming about this so much.
Why I'm running in this race, because I know I can lead that
Every
fight.
single one of them,
And
including
I know
Pierre. Pierre
Canada
wants to fight
right
Trump
now
too. I like Pierre,
needs
but
a leader who can fight for our country, who can stand up to Trump, and has the guts and the experience to get that job done.
It's hard to imagine any other kind of situation that would inspire this kind of Canadian patriotism. But
it's good to remember how great our country is, isn't it? Like,
it's hard to find another situation that could have sparked his patriotism. I don't know, January, February 2022, and since then, right? It hasn't been where people aren't modifying the Canadian flag. They might have been flying it upside down, but it's always remained the Canadian flag. It's been extremely patriotic over the past 3 years to wave the Canadian flag. But that wasn't their quota, or that wasn't their doing, right? It wasn't their idea to wave the Canadian flag. They, as in the government, right? It was a sign of anti-government. And so now the Canadian flag for the past 3 years was shown as, oh, that's a Canadian flag that person's got on their car. They're crazy. They must have supported the Freedom Convoy. They're crazy. They're freaking crazy. And now you wave the Canadian flag, and it no longer is somehow attributed to the Freedom Convoy. And it's a symbol of standing up for Canada against America. It's bizarre how they keep trying to use the flag as a weapon of, in this moment, it means this thing. No, the Canadian flag is the Canadian flag. It should be the only flag that we celebrate in this country. That's patriotic within itself, whether you're waving the Canadian flag at the Freedom Convoy, extremely patriotic, or whether you're waving the flag when Team Canada is playing against Team America. Like that it doesn't matter. It's just patriotism is the maple leaf Canadian flag. It's not patriotic to boo the American anthem. Please stop doing that. Stop doing that. That's disgusting.
Most of the Liberal leadership contenders want to kind of drop the carbon tax now. You defended it for years, and now you'll dump it, I guess.
I was the first leadership candidate to say I would drop the carbon tax.
Right.
The very first one. And I think that got the ball rolling. And it was the right thing to do. For me, the message that we heard clearly, and actually we heard it first here in Atlantic Canada, was that Canadians recognize that climate change is real. They want climate action, but that a consumer-facing price on carbon was not working in their lives. And I think that it is really arrogant of a government not to listen to people. So I was glad to be the first person who said that I would drop it. And I was glad when I was in government to champion excluding home heating oil.
Let's talk about...
Oh my goodness. You gaslighting little witch. Replace the W with a different letter of the alphabet. Oh, you are the worst. It's so important for the government to listen to the people. Am I going insane here? This makes me feel like I'm going insane and like I'm losing my mind. What do you mean the people?
Well, it's because it's all gaslighting, Sunshine Baby. That's why. Oh, look how pissed he looks. That's awesome.
People have been screaming from rooftops, literally, for the past X amount of years. I mean, even before the Freedom Convoy. Listen to the people. Now you're listening to the people. No, you're not. You're absolutely not. You're listening to your liberal echo chamber. That's all you're listening to. And it's not even working. That's why you guys are tanking the polls. That's why you're not a popular MP. Like, not even as popular as you were. She used to be popular in a super negative way. Oh my goodness. Freeland was right up there. It was Justin Trudeau and Freeland, Jagmeet, and Pierre. And they've all lost their popularity except Pierre Poilievre, right? Popularity doesn't necessarily mean good. It can mean bad. Trudeau was extremely popular in like a super negative way. Chrystia Freeland was also very popular in a super negative way. And now she's not popular anymore. She's not. So you're not listening to the people. Absolutely not. You could have been the most popular MP if you chose to like vote non-confidence, right? When Pierre tabled that, you could have been like a freaking superstar for a little spat in time, just a tiny little amount. But no, I can't believe she's saying this. I can't believe that she's trying to gaslight us. We gotta listen to the people. Give me a freaking break.
Listen to the people, man.
Anybody.
about housing. You've said, I think this was just today, in terms of the housing shortage, in part you're going to tie the number of new immigrants to housing availability. That kind of slows down the population growth until the housing can catch up. Pierre Poilievre, to his credit, has introduced a kind of a similar idea. So what makes your plan different, and how would it work?
Well, I think it is really important to
Pierre Poilievre brought forward the idea first, and she is now copying it. I mean, come on. Even for the reporter from CTV, like, I expect better from our mainstream media, man. This is just disgusting.
Recognize that housing is a huge challenge in the lives of Canadians, in the lives of people here in Atlantic Canada. We're here in Halifax, seeing, an extremely attractive city people want to live in, but housing is becoming unaffordable. And I think that as a government, we have to be sure that we have the homes that are affordable for Canadians to live in, for young people to start their families. And so
I've got this condition where I don't feel pain.
I would get a goal
without feeling like you're
say all those things, which right now you can't do in Canada. It's not the same. Like, their ability to express themselves on the internet has been severely limited.
Well, things are getting even crazier here in Canada. We've just found, I don't know if it's digitally altered. I have absolutely no idea. But apparently there's this leaked audio circulating of Donald Trump calling Justin Trudeau a loser after Canada beat America in the hockey game. So
really?
We're going to take a look at that. He also is talking to Justin Trudeau about finding peace with Ukraine and Russia. And there are some developments on just overall peace between the Russia-Ukraine war. You also have Joe Rogan, who doubles down on how Canada's absolutely full of censorship and a horrible, horrible country. Not the people, not the land, but the government. Then you have some radical MPs here in Canada that are trying to revoke Elon Musk's Canadian citizenship because Elon Musk and Orange Man bad. There's a lot to take a look at in this video, and I hope you stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And since we are going to be talking about censorship, one of the best ways to avoid censorship is with a VPN. And this so happens to be a perfect segue into today's sponsor.
Sorry,
I'd like to
Mr.
thank today's
Sunshine,
sponsor,
baby.
Private Internet, different speculative points. So let's just get right into it. 338 polling is now showing Pierre Poilievre has dropped significantly and Mark Carney has risen significantly. It was showing previously that Pierre was at like 230 or 220 projected seats. Now he's down to 177 projected seats, and he needs 172 for a majority. So he's just about outside of that majority government territory, which is absolutely insane, with a bottom line of what's projected to be 138 and a top end of 211, which is less than where he was projected to get like 2-3 weeks ago. Mark Carney apparently is skyrocketing in the polls. He's now at 120 projected seats, and then, well, I have to change the verbiage because I used to say 99% likely across the boards of him winning the most seats and odds of a majority government, but according to 338 polling now, that is inaccurate. So it's 87% likely of Pierre Poilievre for winning the most seats and 54% likely of the Conservatives winning a majority government, with 33% showing the Conservatives winning a minority government. And it's now showing 12% likely that the Liberals are going to win a minority government. So you can see a lot of turbulence in the polls right now, and people are calling it fake. People are saying a whole bunch of different things, and I'm going to leave that up to you to decide, okay? What I think is going on is nothing's happened since Justin Trudeau's resigned. Nothing, right? Prorogation is still ongoing. You have some candidates that are running for Liberal leadership. A couple have been exiled, voted off the island by the board of directors for claims of racism or whatever the heck you want to call it. But nothing's changed. And maybe this is just the effects of prorogation. Nothing is supposed to change, and it feels like we're in no man's land. Or maybe this is also kind of part of the problem. Self-admittedly, Donald Trump, I mean, he says that he got a really big boost from going on Joe Rogan and doing a whole social media rounds, which is something that he was phenomenal at doing versus Kamala Harris. And this is something that we're not seeing right now with Pierre Poilievre. I'm not suggesting that he has a Donald Trump approach. I'm suggesting conservatives get off their ass a little bit and start talking to YouTubers, not me, but just go out and talk to people, go on podcasts and sit down for long form, unedited, content, not with Jordan Peterson, but with people, with regular content creators. There's a whole list that I could come up with, but I think that the conservatives really need to do that. Not backbench MPs, not former staffers. No. Pierre needs to get off his butt and do that. That's my own personal opinion, folks, but I would absolutely love to know yours. And also let me know down in the comments if you would like to see a Pierre Poilievre interview. Now let's get into some of the news. Starting off with Hamas protesters, or pro-Palestine protesters. There's a group protesting right in front of Minister Bill Blair's house happening right now in Toronto.
War criminal! War criminal! War criminal! War criminal! War criminal! War criminal! War criminal!
So there was a ceasefire that happened and hostages are being transferred to one another. I don't really understand what's going on with these protests, how they're still ongoing, because everything has kind of been resolved to the best that it's possibly able to do. And then we've also found out after the U.S. Aid leaks happened or whatever with Canada, we're spending like a lot of money. Like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on aid in Gaza. So I don't really understand what the hell they're protesting, but hey, it seems to be still ongoing. So good for you. Express your democratic right, I suppose. Then you have posts like this circulating online. Mad as hell. Canadians cancel U.S. travel en masse as trade war escalates. And apparently this is a real thing. People are scheduled to go to Florida, scheduled to go to, Texas, scheduled to go wherever, and they're apparently canceling their plans, their flights, their hotels, everything because of the ongoing trade war. And I just want to pass a question off to you. Is this applicable to you? Have you canceled or trips to America? Are you boycotting America, the country, and American products? Let me know what you guys are doing down below. Then you got radical NDP MP Charlie Angus. Man, I freaking hate this guy. He's freaking nuts. He wants to ban the social media platform X on all government agencies' communication channels. Ban political candidates at all levels of government to campaign, promote, disseminate, and share contents or messages under public or official capacity on X, and publicly encourage private Canadian entities and users to use alternatives to communicate and interact with their audience. He just wants everybody to stop using X, which is crazy. And that's this guy right here, Charlie Angus from Timmins James.
Shout out Charlie Angus.
A freaking nut job, man. He actually wants to also remove Elon Musk's citizenship because Elon and Orange Man bad. I can't believe it's a real thing. But that's also the same guy that tried to make it literally a criminal offense to say oil and gas is good. Yay. Yeah, so take his word as what you will. Then you have China doing some pretty scary things. We've all known that there's cameras everywhere now. CCTV footage, cameras on our phones, cameras everywhere. A lot of people on their laptops and computers, they actually put little sticky tape over their cameras. They don't want it turned on. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't really matter anymore with China's technology. Turns out that China has unveiled the world's most powerful spy camera capable of identifying faces from space with quantum leap imaging technology. And this just obviously is a generated, like AI generated or artificially drawn footage.
Currently,
and that's over
real?
America, if I'm not mistaken. That or our 11th province, like that. That's not China. That seems to be America right there. So kind of crazy and also a little bit scary that this is going on, that they can see your face just as good from space as they can with a phone standing right in front of you. Yeah, kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's
Let me
pretty
know if you
fucking
guys are
scary.
as freaked out about the future as I am. Then you got Zelensky, who's definitely freaked out about the future. Apparently, he was sent, or supposed to be sent, $500 billion of aid, and it was only $100 billion. And it was a grant, he says. No repayment and no loans. Message from the United States is that Trump is negotiating rare earth minerals with Ukraine, and Trump is currently sitting down with Putin to create peace. There's two different stories, and it seems like America is saying, hey, we want some of that money back. Yeah, that money that we gave you as a loan, you owe us some interest on that. And Ukraine's guy, Zelensky's going, no, that was a grant. Come on, man. Come on. So, yeah, I'm sure that will definitely lead to peace sooner than later. And then you have Trump saying this recently in the media, saying, I spoke to Governor Trudeau, and they don't have military protection. Let's take a look.
Break. It's YouTube's ad, not mine. I don't get paid for this shit.
Going with Canada, there was obviously a delay in implementing those tariffs.
I spoke to Governor Trudeau on numerous occasions, and we'll see what happens. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. They don't have any military protection because and you take a look at what's going on out there. You have Russian ships, you have China ships, you have Chinese ships, you have a lot of ships out there, and people are in danger. This is a different world today. It's a different world. They need our protection, yes.
They need our protection. They need our protection. And Canada will not be subject to tariffs if we become the 51st state. And then we'll also have the protection of the United States. A lot of people in Canada seem to be on board with that. Let me know if you were on board with that or if you're against it and your reasoning as to why. And then you have this clip here that's circulating of leaked audio of Justin Trudeau being called a loser by Trump. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's AI, but let's just take a listen.
Won the first game, and the second game was a great game. It could have gone either way. Justin's a loser, always has been, and he's just a guy that really doesn't. I think he's done a very bad job for Canada. He's taken it radical left. Justin's
Doesn't really sound like AI.
Sort of a nice guy, but he's a loser. Won the first.
The heck? I have absolutely no idea, again, if that is real. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but maybe you guys know down below in the comments if it is or isn't real. And then we got the story about Trump meeting with Trudeau to discuss what's going on in Ukraine. So you can find this on CTV's X page or by going to CTV's actual website. Prime Minister's office says Justin Trudeau spoke with United States President Donald Trump. I don't know why he did it like spoke, but apparently he spoke with President Trump about the war in Ukraine on Saturday ahead of the virtual G7 meeting slated for Monday. Earlier this week, Trudeau told reporters that Ukraine must have a seat at the table in any talks of ending hostiles ignited by Russia's full-scale invasion 3 years ago. Russia and U.S. representatives met in Saudi Arabia this week without Kiev's participation and agreed to work towards a resolution of the war. A statement from Trump's office following the call said both leaders hope to see an end to Russia's invasion into Ukraine, which nearly began 3 years ago, and said the war should have never started and would not have had Trump been president at the time. And so I think that we might actually see some peace pretty freaking soon, and that would be phenomenal because then we can go back to spending money here in our country instead of Canada, America, and every other country spending a lot of money on Ukraine. I'm sure the Ukrainian people are nice, but again, it's not our war and it's not our problem. And so we're going to have to just wait and see how that plays out. But speaking of problem, Joe Rogan got in a little bit of trouble with this clip that he said in somewhat of a recent podcast. Now, I did make a video about this quite recently, so we're just going to go over the part where he says stuff about Canada because there's a new development about this.
Every government wants to eventually completely and totally control its population because it's way easier for them to make money. And that's what they like to do.
Yeah.
They like to make money. They like to be in bed with the lobbyists and the military industrial complex and the pharmaceutical industrial complex, and they like to fucking impose their will on people. And if you can't express yourself and say, hey, this is fucked up, this is crazy, why am I doing this? Like, these studies show that you're not correct. Like, if you can't say all those things, which right now you can't do in Canada, it's not the same. Like, their ability to express himself on the internet has been severely limited. It's It's real weird, man. It's real weird, and it's happening right. You could walk there. If you wanted to, you could walk there, and it's fucked.
Yes, it absolutely is. And I mean, you try to find news on Facebook from CBC, from CTV, and you can't. I mean, it's blocked. It literally says this is not available. Canadian news is not available in Canada. Super weird. So there was apparently some backlash from that. And Joe Rogan wanted to clarify something. So we're going to take a look now at this in a post that was February 22nd. So yesterday he just posted this and has 1 million, almost 2 million views. We're going to round it up to 2 million. I had a conversation recently where we were talking about Canadians and their ability to communicate online limited, where many people said it's not true. Even this person right here, John Cleese, chimed in. This is what I was talking about. We're going to take a look at the video that he's referring to in a minute. The Canadian Online News Act prevents people from sharing news links and Facebook and Instagram, on Facebook and Instagram. The stated purpose is to force tech companies to pay news outlets for their work. But to me, that doesn't even make sense. Posting links on social media drives traffic. The more people post links, the more traffic your news site gets. But stopping people from posting links absolutely does is limit the ability of people to spread information. Then there's the Online Harms Act, which even The Atlantic described as Canada's extremist attack on free speech. In the article, they state a bill making its way through the Canadian Parliament would impose draconian criminal penalties on hate speech and curtail people's liberty in order to stop crimes they haven't yet committed. These are the things I was talking about. It's a slippery slope, and it's moving in the wrong direction for the people of Canada, which is something that you and I definitely know about. They've absolutely been trying to suppress speech here in Canada, and the linked article that's been posted on Joe Rogan's thread that almost 2 million people have seen goes to BBC, and we're going to take a look here at this video.
Here in Canada, access to news on Facebook and Instagram has been blocked. For example, if I go on my Instagram and say visit the pages of the CNN, the New York Times, or the BBC, I get this message that says people in Canada can't see this content. So what is going on between tech giants and Canada? And does this have global implications? The Canadian government passed a law demanding that tech giants pay news outlets for their content. This is a law called the Canadian Online News Act, also known as Bill C-18.
Facebook made billions of dollars in profits over the past years, including off of Canadians.
The big tech.
It's freaking criminal for Trudeau to try and suppress media like this. It's starting to make us feel like North Korea. I mean, yes, you can still access the news by going directly to the website, right? So, okay, you can't see it on Facebook. It's blocked on Facebook and blocked on Instagram. But let's be honest, that's how some people get their news. That's how some people, a lot of people, not just some, the majority of people now are getting their news from social media, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on X and you're linking to CTV's website. You should have the ability, if someone posts a link on CTV's Facebook page or directs you to CTV on Facebook, you should have the ability to click that and see the content, but you can't. And that's what's so freaking scary, is they're suppressing one channel on which you're able to actually view the news. Trying to direct you to their website, okay, yeah, but that's still a version of suppression, right? It's a very slippery slope, just as Joe Rogan said.
Tech companies say that this is unfair and that news outlets share their content on their platforms voluntarily so that they can gain access to a wider audience. Meta says that the law is, quote, made on the incorrect premise that Meta benefits unfairly from news content shared on our platforms. Google was also going to ban access to news, but in November, it reached a $100 million deal with Canada, saying its concerns with the law were addressed. So what has the impact been like on Canadians? Well, Meta's news ban came at a time when the country was grappling with a large wildfire crisis, and many people were being evacuated. At the time, a lot of people relied on Facebook to share vital news articles with information about where to evacuate and where to find shelter.
Facebook and the internet are almost synonymous in the Northwest Territories. It's quite stupid and dangerous to block news access in any way, shape, or form during that time.
But this is not just a Canadian story. The UK and the US are also looking at passing similar laws that make Meta and Google pay for news. So for now, all eyes are on Canada to see how this unfolds.
Yeah, we've been a test pilot, and I don't agree with it, and most Canadians also don't agree with it. It's a very, very slippery slope, and so that's what Joe Rogan was
Phil
talking about.
C-18 was
how
done. Clearly
the
not.
Canadian government is suppressing the media here in Canada and suppressing free speech. That's absolutely freaking true. It's very, very frightening, and I would love to know your guys' thoughts on that. And then we're going to wrap this all up with a recent speech that Donald Trump did about peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Let's take a look.
Between Russia and Ukraine, people are being killed, mostly young men, mostly Russian and Ukrainian men, at levels you've never seen before. Thousands of people a week. And I've spoken to President Putin, and I think that thing is going to end, but it's got to end. It's a horrible, horrible thing to watch. I'm dealing with President Zelensky. I'm dealing with President Putin. I'm trying to get the money back that, or secured, because, you know, Europe has given $100 billion. The United States has given $350 billion because we had a stupid, incompetent president and administration. 350. But here's worse. Europe gave it in the form of a loan. They get their money back.
I mean, to be fair, if Trump is calling Biden stupid and incompetent on a live broadcast with CPAC, I absolutely believe now that Trump would call Justin Trudeau a loser multiple times on a leaked audio clip.
We gave it in the form of nothing, so I want them to give us something for all of the money that we put up, and I'm going to try and get the war settled, and I'm going to try and get all that death ended. So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get. But we feel so stupid. Here's Europe. And, you know, it affects Europe. It doesn't really affect us, except we don't like to see two things. Number one, how Biden got us into this thing in the first place. Terrible. But why is it that he didn't ask for equalization? Europe should put
be exactly the same. It'll mean higher taxes, more inflation, bigger lineups at the food banks. That has been the result over the last 10 years of the Trudeau Liberals, and over the last 5 years during which Carney has been Trudeau's economic advisor. So if you want an end to these Liberal deficits that have driven up the costs for middle-class families, you have to vote for a real change with a common sense Conservative government, and we're the ones that will deliver it.
So if we're talking about a timeline for you to get rid of the deficit, what would that be?
Well, the sooner the better. It's a Liberal deficit. So we have to get rid of Liberal waste. Under Trudeau-Carney Liberals, they have, for example...
That's kind of a hard question for him to answer because he doesn't have an inside look at all of our government spending. He has an idea on what we're spending money on, but he doesn't have access to the books right now. So saying how fast you're going to get rid of the deficit, I mean, what did you say, a year, 6 months, 2 years? Like, it's hard to say because you don't have access to the finances. But if you're coming in saying we're going to do it no matter what, then, you know, we're living in a super transparent time right now, with a lack of transparency from our governments, right? You're seeing a lot of transparency shift with America, right? The Kamala Biden administration was very close shut on everything, and now Trump and Elon and JD Vance are opening everything up. I can't believe I put Elon before the VP, but yeah, it seems like it's Elon's the president and Trump is the leader of Doge at this point. That's just a little joke. But with Canada, now you're going to have to see how Poilievre and the Conservatives are going to go about it. Are we going to have our own little Northern Doge, right? Or little Huskies? Like, I don't know what the heck we're going to call it, but we definitely need more transparency, and we need it quickly. And that's like the first step towards solving our deficit, is let the people know what the heck we're spending our money on.
Example, added 100,000 public servants. I'll be reducing the number of bureaucrats. They've doubled the budget for corporate welfare. I will be cutting that. They doubled the budget for consultants. I'll be cutting that. I'll be cutting back on foreign aid to bring our money back home to Canada, and I'll impose a dollar-for-dollar law that requires my ministers find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending.
The latest polling shows that there's narrowing between the Liberals and the Conservatives. Why do you think that is, and do you think that has anything to do with moving away from our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and moving toward a new leader?
Well, I think Mr. Carney's a very sneaky guy. He has been Trudeau's economic advisor for the last 5 years, and what has been the result? Housing costs have doubled. Lineups at food banks have doubled. The national debt has doubled. He has helped Justin Trudeau impose the carbon tax and pushed for that tax to go up even more. And now he plans a real sneaky trick. He's going to hide the carbon tax for 2 months right before the election so that it will not appear at the gas station. But after the election's over, he'll bring in a much bigger carbon tax. That's why the people keep calling him Carbon Tax Carney. And so if you want a change from the disastrous Trudeau, Carney, Liberal policies of the last 10 years, you have to elect common sense Conservatives who will axe the taxes for everyone for good, who will slash bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, foreign aid to bring down debt, taxes, and inflation, who will take GST off new homes and remove bureaucracy so that we can build houses people can afford. That's what real change is, and only common sense Conservatives can deliver it.
Let's talk about President Donald Trump. How would you handle him if, hypothetically speaking, you had a phone call with him today? What would that conversation be like? What would you say to him?
Back off. One, we'll never be the 51st state. We will bear any burden and pay any price to protect our sovereignty. 2, we will respond to tariffs with retaliation, and I will use the dollars raised for those tariffs to save jobs and companies that are directly affected by a trade war, but also cut taxes for workers and businesses so that we can bring home the investment Liberals have driven south of the border. We need to be strong here at home. Under Carney, he supported Trudeau's decision to block pipelines and resource jobs in Canada while he invested in American coal and moved his headquarters from Canada to New York City, just like Trump wanted. We don't need a prime minister who's going to put America's economy first, as Carney did. We need a prime minister who will put Canada first. That means passing a big, bold, patriotic, bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, home building, energy, making stuff in Canada, so we can bring back that investment and become a self-reliant country that rewards its companies for paying high wages, that produces its own resources and trades across Canada. That's what we're going to do when I'm Prime Minister, and that will make us strong to stare down Trump and any of the threats he puts forward.
For months, you've said...
Yeah, very good answers. So far, everything he's saying is just absolutely phenomenal.
That Canada is broken. Now, in the wake of the tariff threats, of the threat of becoming the 51st state, do you still think that Canada is broken?
I think the Liberals have broken everything. They broke our housing market by doubling housing costs. They broke in the household budgets by raising carbon taxes and income taxes, with twice as many people lined up at food banks as there were before the Trudeau-Carney Liberals. They've broken our criminal justice system with catch and release that has allowed criminals to rampage through our streets, gun crime having doubled. They've broken families with the fentanyl crisis that they unleashed by legalizing hard drugs and leaving our borders open. We have more people dead of fentanyl after a decade of the Liberals than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. So they broke a lot of things, and it is patriotic to point out what is broken so that you can fix it. I mean, Liberals they're trying to gaslight Canadians into saying, if you point out any of the problems that they caused after 10 years in power, you're unpatriotic. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Patriotism is about having an honest conversation about the enormous damage the Liberals did to this country. And by the way, I won't take any lessons on patriotism from Mark Carney, who took jobs and money out of Canada to put them in the States, in China, and in the Middle East. I won't take any lessons from the Liberals on patriotism after they have been lowering our flag and putting down our history for the last 10 years. Conservatives will put Canada first, and that means fixing what Liberals broke.
And so far, his messaging on that has been absolutely phenomenal. At the Canada First rally, in case you missed it, I mean, that was one of the most, if not the most patriotic speech by any candidate running for prime minister, I think, that I've ever seen, or in an extremely, extremely long time. I mean, he wants to bring back all of our statues that have been defaced. He wants to make it but put laws in to protect defacing any of our statues, our historical statues. He also wants to bring back Terry Fox to our passport because Justin Trudeau removed that with a caricature of himself playing in his Rideau cottage or something like that. Like, it's just freaking bizarre, right? Super bizarre. So yeah, we definitely need to bring back our historic values and what Canada actually stands for and believes in, and bring back the patriotism. People want it. People are ready for it. You can almost taste it. It's right there at the tip of your tongue. It's right there within grasp. We just got to freaking have the election, man.
Are a week away from our own election here in Ontario, where we choose our new premier, and it shows that Doug Ford, the leader of the Progressive Conservatives, has a healthy lead. What's your working relationship like with him, and who do you endorse, if you endorse anyone?
Well, my working relationship is great with all the premiers. I'll work with anybody who will put Canada first. Anyone of any party who's prepared to work together, for example, to take taxes off home building. I'm going to go to all the premiers and say, look, I'm going to take the GST off new homes. Will you take your provincial sales tax off those homes? That would save over $100,000 for a young family trying to buy a home. Then let's pressure the municipalities to cut their home building taxes. I'll say to them, look, let's knock down interprovincial trade barriers. I'll give you a bonus every time you remove a barrier to interprovincial trade so that we can start trading between Canadians rather than giving all our goods to the Americans. I'll work with anybody on my plan to bring in a blue seal, for example, a blue seal for immigrant doctors and nurses that is recognized across Canada, so that the doctors that are driving taxis in Canada can actually take a test, prove they're qualified, and get licensed anywhere in the country. So no matter who Ontarian.
Yeah, so when people talk about trade or trade barriers and interprovincial trade, that's not just for our goods. That's not just for our oil or our energy or our liquor and things like that. That's also for our services. Because like he's been saying, and he just said right now, before I rudely interrupted him, you have doctors that come from other countries that are very, very, very qualified, and they're delivering Uber Eats because they don't have the schooling here in Canada. So we need basically a red seal for our services in Canada. And even if you get qualified, let's say, as a nurse in British Columbia, you can't just quit your job, or a paramedic. You can't just quit your job and move to Toronto or a different part of Ontario or something like that, or the East Coast, a different province or even territory, because your qualifications, even if you've been a paramedic for 5 or 10 years, they're not seen as qualifications for the provinces. So whatever province you get qualified in for a lot of these positions, you have to stay there unless it's a red seal. So you absolutely need a red seal for all of our trades, all of our working labor, man. It's crazy to hold people hostage in a certain province, and then you have shortages. Like, the pandemic was the best opportunity that Canada had, and the Liberals had. They had the best opportunity to, instead of use emergency measures to shut down our country and ruin everything, they could have said, you know what, we're going to just basically do a very emergency like red seal test for all healthcare professionals, so that you can go from one side of the country to the next, or if you're a new immigrant here or something like that, then you can just take the red seal test and then get qualified, and then we can put more healthcare into our country, because there's a massive healthcare shortage, and it still lingers today. In fact, it's probably worse than it ever has been. You got millions and millions of people that don't have access to even a family doctor. So the Liberals had every opportunity during the pandemic to use emergency powers for good and create these red seal certification tests for our labor force, and they didn't. Instead, they used it for evil. And so this is something that I'm really, really happy that Pierre's talking about, because obviously everyone sees the damage that a lack of a healthcare system like what we're seeing right now in Canada does. It puts the whole country into total chaos.
Choose or other provinces choose as their premier, I'll always work with that person to put our country first.
Pierre, thank you so much for being here, for making the time for us. We appreciate
that. Ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to this channel.
This is Recognize, an autonomous battery-powered security system developed.
Heritage of both you and Mr. Chandra Arya, who were disqualified. You keep coming back to this. Do you believe race played a role in this? Because that seems to be a component of what you're saying here.
That would be a good question for the Liberal Party, because the facts that they've disqualified 2 people from immigrant communities, both from the South Asian community, I think the Liberal Party would probably be best suited to answer that question.
But what do you believe? I mean, you have mentioned this. I assume you must have mentioned this in your direct appeal to the I believe it's 12 people who were meeting today to decide on this. I mean, what is your view on this as the person who has been disqualified from the race today?
I think it's a targeted attack against all immigrants in Canada. The fact that they do not want to have people from immigrant communities represented for top leadership roles. It's okay.
No, Ruby, it has nothing to do with that. Well, maybe it does, subconsciously. Maybe it does. We haven't had a female prime minister, like an actually elected one. Okay, we haven't had a person of color as prime minister. I'm sure all that will change in coming years. But being a prime minister and having ties through your heritage to the Indian government in a time right now where things are just so volatile between the Canadian government and the Indian government, it seems like an unnecessary thing to do. So did this have anything to do with race? I don't know, maybe. Who knows? Did this have something to do with possibly you having ties with the Indian government who we're in a constant political war with? I'm going to put my money on that and say, absolutely, you are too hot to the fire. And for that reason, the Liberal, board of directors, they're saying that they can't trust you. Alrighty, well, the Liberal leadership race continues with a wild spin, a racist spin at that. Liberals are really showing their true colors here, man. People are running, people are collecting their funds, and so far the Liberal Party has disqualified 2 candidates. A Indian man who did not speak English or French, and then last night a Indian woman, Ruby. And this is kind of crazy because both people were able to collect the funds, and now you're seeing the true colors of the Liberal Party. So the Indian princess is kicked out, and it comes down to just a few people here. It comes down to Mark Carney, comes down to Chrystia Freeland, and comes down to Karina Gould. Everybody else has been either dropped out or, in this case, kicked out. So very, very interesting. We're going to take a look at Ruby going on CBC and talking about her side of things, because this caught everybody by surprise. Her campaign was pretty decent. Her campaign was aight. She raised the money. She used to be a MP way back in the day. She has very traditional Liberal values, so she views herself, tries to brand herself as the Canadian Donald Trump, and she's, seems like she was standing up against wokeness, which was a breath of fresh air within the Liberal Party. I've said this before many, many, many times. There's nothing inherently wrong with the Liberal Party. Like, it's just a name, right? Conservative, Liberal, NDP, that doesn't matter. It's who's in the party and who's pushing those values. That's what matters. So you can go back a year. I've been saying that you need the Liberal Party to have a clean slate. Every person that's on the Liberal Party right now needs to be gone by Felicia, and they need to bring new people in. And it seemed like Ruby was trying to be one of those new people to be brought in, but of course it didn't work. So we're going to take a look at that right now. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage y'all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And without further ado, let's take a look at this interview. It's pretty crazy that out of nowhere, she was unanimously voted on to be disqualified from the race. Super bizarre.
Thank you for joining us. Have you received official word yet from the Liberal Party on your disqualification from this race?
I haven't as of yet. It's quite interesting that I turned on CBC News and read your headline that I was being disqualified from the race. I checked my email, my campaign team has, and as of this moment, we have not received any indication from the Liberal Party as to that type of decision, which to me is very alarming and very shocking that there are these types of leaks, from sources that are occurring.
We have just received a statement from the Liberal Party, Ms. Dalla. I swear this.
Yeah. She was actually accused of being under foreign interference, I think from India, of all places. So very interesting that they're using foreign interference as a way to remove people, right? Whether it's true or not, I don't know. They did the same thing with Chrystia Freeland a couple weeks ago or a week ago. They said that she's compromised from foreign interference. So, but they didn't kick her out. Is it because she's white and not brown? I don't know. I'm just calling a spade here. This is pretty wild.
This just came into my email. It's a statement by Azam Ismail, who is the Liberal Party of Canada National Director, on Ruby Dalla's candidacy for leader of the Liberal Party. Today, the Liberal Leadership Vote Committee unanimously made the decision to disqualify Ruby Dalla. The decision followed an extensive process and review, including interviews, questionnaires, and an opportunity for Dr. Dalla to directly address the committees. After a thorough investigation, the Leadership Vote Committee and the Leadership Expense Committee, sitting jointly, unanimously determined that Dr. Dalla was in breach of 10 violations of the National Liberal Leadership rules, leadership vote rules, and the leadership expense rules. The violations include concerns about alleged violations of the Canada Elections Act, certain other election finance matters, non-disclosure of material facts, and inaccurate financial reporting. The Leadership Vote Committee determined that the violations were extremely serious and accepted the recommendation of the Chief Electoral Officer and disqualified Dr. Dalla under Section 8 of the National Leadership Rules. I'm assuming this is the first you are hearing this statement. What do you say that it was unanimous that there were 10 violations of those various rules?
Well, I think it speaks to the state of the Liberal Party of Canada that a candidate who is running to become leader of the party, who is running to become prime minister in our country, is finding out that she has been disqualified on air from an email that the media outlet that she is interviewing with has received. So it is very alarming and very shocking. It is certainly not surprising because I think the Liberal Party of Canada was seeing exactly what our internal polls are telling us, that my campaign and my team, we were neck to neck with a front runner in the race. They did not want me to go on to that debate stage in Montreal. They certainly did not want me on that ballot. And the Liberal Party of Canada wanted to complete the coronation of Mark Carney. All of the allegations that you have mentioned have been, that you have spoken about. They are completely false. They are fabricated. And I will not allow the Liberal Party of Canada, or anyone for that matter, to smear my name or to smear the name of thousands of volunteers in our campaign.
You said you had an opportunity to present to the committee that made this decision today, correct? What did you say to them?
Yes.
What did you say?
On the committee, they had members from the voting committee, from the expense committee. This committee has been kept secret from all of the candidates. The candidates have been asking who are the members of this committee. It wasn't until today when I actually presented to them via a virtual call that I was even made aware of who the individuals were. Neither was time taken for anyone to even introduce themselves. But regardless, no matter what we said and what proof was provided that these violations, were not committed, that this was simply false and fabricated breaches that the party is alleging, they still had a predetermined agenda to keep Ruby Dalla off of the ballot, to keep Ruby Dalla out of the debate stage. Because they did not want anyone challenging their front runner, their blue-eyed boy, Mark Carney.
Okay, I mean, you make that allegation. You say you have thousands of people in your volunteers in your organization.
Let's just be, to quote a liberal here, let me be clear. Ruby was not going to win. It wasn't even going to be close. I don't care how much money she's got. I don't care where she's coming from. It was interesting to see her throw her name in the ring right now, but you're going up against Mark Carney, who was literally selected by Justin Trudeau, who's in it with all the Tories. It just wasn't going to happen, all right? Like, Chrystia Freeland was the second in command. If Canada had nuclear codes, Chrystia Freeland would have had them ready to go as the second in command for this country. Chrystia Freeland was a pretty big deal for the ranking system in politics, and now she's going to get her ass handed to her because Mark Carney is in the ring. It's already predetermined. Carney is going to win. That's why the Conservatives aren't wasting a single dollar in editing or advertising budget to target anybody else other than Mark Carney. They're not even saying Comrade Kamala, or not Comrade Kamala for crying out loud, Comrade Chrystia or Carbon Tax Freeland. They're not even wasting their time saying that because the Conservatives know it's going to be Mark Carney. In order of who has the most amount of votes in the Liberal leadership race, it's going to be Mark Carney. Then way further down, but not too far down, it's going to be Chrystia Freeland. Mark Carney's probably going to get like 47 or like 53 to 55% of all the votes. Freeland probably get like 22, and then maybe Gould scoops up a little bit of the rest, right? Like it's going to be a pretty wide gap between everybody. Like there was no chance that you were going to win. Now, does this mean that people could have been going to Ruby in maybe the tens of thousands, right? Because there's 400,000 people. Could she have gotten 3, 4, 5% of the voting? Yeah, that's very possible.
From gyms? Yeah, I can agree with banning them from gyms.
From Mark Carney? Yes, that's also
I can agree with that.
Possible. But she also carries some baggage, according to the Liberal Party. Ties with the Indian government. She was born in Winnipeg or Manitoba or something, so she may not be from India, but she has ties through her heritage, which is why they've accused her of Indian foreign interference or something. It's still wild. It's absolutely still wild. Don't get me wrong, but there was no way she was going to win. I'm sorry, Ruby. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you were not going to win.
I've not seen any polling anywhere that puts you neck and neck with Mark Carney.
Not even close.
If anything, he has a commanding lead over even Chrystia Freeland and Karina Gould, who in some form are second and third amongst Liberals and amongst Canadians. I mean, what are you basing this on, that you were the threat to Mr. Carney?
Ali, I love you here.
I mean, it's easy to talk on the court, I bet.
But you've always been.
Well, I'm the only one that was the outsider in the race. I am the only candidate that has not been an advisor to the current administration. I am the only candidate that has not served as a minister or a member of parliament. I am the only one that was an outsider that was continuing to challenge the front runner, continuing to challenge and speak out for the establishment, and also bringing forward policies which I thought were very important to bring our party back to the center, to return our party back into the hands of the membership and the grassroots. And when I talk about these polling numbers, this was and is going to be a preferential ballot where people mark 1, 2, 3, or 4. And even though people may be supporting Mark Carney as their number one choice, they were looking at supporting Ruby Dalla for their second choice, along with the other thousands of members that our team had signed up. And I think that the Liberal Party must have felt some sort of threat to the establishment, to their coronation that they wanted for their front runner.
Okay, you say you are an outsider. One of the allegations against you is that there was an outsider, as in a non-Canadian citizen, playing a role in your campaign, involved in the direction and support of the campaign and financially contributing to your campaign. Are you aware of a wealthy non-Canadian citizen playing a role in your campaign and donating to your campaign?
First of all, there has been no donations. Again, these are false and fabricated stories that are being made up. We have provided them with all of the information in regards to this. But if the false and fabricated, and fake allegations continue, we have seen that they will say whatever it takes. And they did by having me disqualified in this race so that I would not participate in the debates in Montreal on Monday and Tuesday.
But is there an extremely wealthy non-Canadian citizen supporting your campaign?
No, there is not.
There is nobody from outside the country who's not a Canadian providing any kind of material support, even if it's donations of things, advising you, giving you direction in any way whatsoever. Because this is one of the allegations that I am told you were presented with. You know what I'm talking about here, I assume, Ms. Dalla, and that was discussed at this committee this afternoon.
Yes, it was. And I can share with you that my candidacy was historic. My candidacy was historic because I was the first woman, of color. I was one of the first women of an immigrant community to seek the leadership for the Liberal Party of Canada to become Canada's Prime Minister. And I had thousands of well-wishers across the world who were excited about this movement and this moment for our party and our country.
Did you?
The only place I was excited for you, Ruby, was Brampton, where you used to be a member of Parliament, right? And to be honest, Brampton is like barely even a part of Canada, holding on by a thread, just by postal code. That's it. Like Canadian, like Brampton is its own little ecosystem. You see it all the time online, man. People are pooping at gas stations and stuff. Sorry, not sorry.
Were you aware, or do you know if there was a corporation that was paying money to some of your campaign staff? Because corporations cannot donate in the political process here. This is another one of the allegations against you.
The allegations list, there were 12 allegations that they presented, and I can tell you it is again false. Our campaign has not in any way been non-compliant with Elections Canada. We have ensured that we have followed all of the rules of Elections Canada. The Liberal Party has come out. One day it was foreign interference. The next day it's about financial violations. I don't know what story is going to be coming out tomorrow, but I can tell you the fact that they have disqualified me clearly shows they did not want me on that debate stage.
Yeah, did they not want her on the debate stage? Did the Liberal Party want to get rid of her? Sure, yeah. Why would they want her? She's not a real contender. It wasn't going to happen. She's running against two actual Liberal MPs and a elitist who's been handpicked by Justin Trudeau, who's
Take charge of your health with the #1 doctor-recommended multivitamin. Up top, Centrum. You did it.
Mom, pass this disguise scanner, searching billions of prices on flights, hotels, and rental cars.
In an attempt to save climate and the entire planet, or specifically Canada, yesterday, before the hockey game between Canada and the United States even finished, Justin Trudeau hopped on his private jet and flew from Vancouver or from Toronto or Montreal, wherever the game was, all the way to Vancouver to meet with Prince Harry, who isn't getting deported from America by Donald Trump because, to quote the President of the United States, he's got enough problems with his wife. And then in a bizarre string of events today, you have a plane from Minneapolis that crashed at the Toronto Pearson Airport. It actually went belly up. So we're going to take a look at that and how there are some injuries, but I don't actually know if there's any reported deaths. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Buckle up because this is going to be a pretty interesting one. Starting things off here with Justin Trudeau, who left the hockey game to hop on his jet and fly to Vancouver to meet the prince and talk about Ukraine.
That you can take that back to Ukraine with you. I said the same thing last time in Düsseldorf, but I know there's new faces and new competitors here. So the whole world, this whole Invictus community and the whole world stands with you.
I don't know why these people are so freaking obsessed with Ukraine, but it's starting to get extremely annoying. And ever since this plane crash that happened within the past couple of hours that we're not going to be taking a look at in Toronto, Justin Trudeau has not mentioned a single thing. You go to his X account, there's no statement, there's no nothing. And this is extremely viral already on social media. So let's take a look now at some of these photos. You got breaking, a Delta CRJ 900 flying from Minneapolis just crashed at the Toronto Pearson Airport. You can see the wheels are up. It is absolutely belly up. And then you can see here people are on the ground, the crew, and they are doing their best to evacuate everybody and to hose it down in case of fires, which we're going to take a look at right now.
We're in Toronto. We just landed.